Okay, I hope you can see the screen now. And I'm going to tell you the answer of this one. Those of you who have already taken the class, perhaps you already know that these types of questions are solved by looking at the gap and guessing about the parts of the speech of the missing word. For example, when I look at this gap here, I first need to think what is missing. Is it a noun missing, verb missing, adjective missing, adverb missing? Now, some of you perhaps have no idea about how to do that. If that is the case, I suggest that you go to the reading section of the website and go through the article which gives you tips and tricks for solving the reading questions. And in that article, you'll find out how to guess what is missing in the gap, and with the help of that, how to find out which is noun, which is verb, and so on. Now, this thing looks confusing, but trust me, anybody who knows this will find the entire test very easy, because this can be applied to reading as well as to fill in the blank questions and listening as well, which we discussed last time in the class. So I'll not get into that, but let me show you how I'm going to solve this question. In 1999, the nation, its first budget deficit. First trick that I'm going to tell you now is, if you see a gap in the middle of the sentence, let's say after the subject, if you see a gap after the subject, that is a verb, unless otherwise specified, or that means it's a verb unless there is any other possibility. So looking at this, I can see that it's a verb, the nation, its first budget deficit. Every sentence in English should have a verb. If the sentence does not have a verb and you have a gap in the middle, that means you are looking for a verb. That's another way of looking into this. I think I need to mute somebody's account here. Okay. So I know this is a verb missing here. Once I know the verb is missing, I need to think about in which tense the verb should be. And this one is in past tense. How do I know? Because we are talking about 1999. So this should be a past tense verb. And then I check here how many past tense verbs we can see here. And if we look carefully, this endures is a verb, but it's in present tense. Because it is a linking word, enjoyed is a verb in past tense, remains is a verb in present tense, suffered is a verb in past tense. So although there are 4 verbs, only 2 out of them, enjoyed and suffered, are in past tense. Now, let's go here and read this sentence. In 1999, the nation, its first budget deficit, which means loss. Now, when there is loss, you are not going to enjoy it. You're going to suffer. So what I did here was I looked at the context and tried to figure out whether it is a negative context or positive. Since it's a negative context, so negative word. That's how I figured out that's the answer. Now you may have a question. Do I have to do this all the time for all the questions? No, you may not need to do that. That actually depends on complexity level of the question. Some of the questions are complex and you don't get the answer immediately, but some of the questions are easy, and the moment you look at the gap, you figure out that, okay, this is the answer. For example, in question number 2, the moment you see this of here, then you can guess that it should be because we are giving a reason why that was happening. Then it says, yet Botswana, one of the wealthiest. Now remember the trick I gave you for this question. Yet Botswana, one of the wealthiest. Again, up to here, this is one sentence, yet Botswana, one of the wealthiest. But you can see yourself, this sentence does not have a verb. And as I told you, if there is a sentence without a verb and there is a gap in the middle, you are looking for a verb. And now you need to think present tense verb or past tense. Now we are talking about the current situation, which means present tense verb. So it has to be either endures or remains. Again, endures means to tolerate something bad, to tolerate something difficult. That's a negative word. Remains is a neutral word. Yet one of the wealthiest. Being wealthy is a positive thing. So endure being a negative word does not fit here, which means remains is the right answer. And most stable countries on the African. Now, out of all the words given here, continent is the only word that collocates with African. So that's how we know the answers of this question. So I'm going to write the answers here. And after this, I will unmute your videos. And if you have any question, you can ask me after that. Okay. So let me write down the answer here. So this one is suffered. This one is because. This one is remains. And this one is continent. So these are the 4 answers. Okay, so if you have any question, you can ask me. Do you know how to do that? Okay, Tara, you can ask me. You know that if you have any specific question, you can raise your hand there. There is a feature to raise hand. Okay, let me explain 2 and 3 as well. And after that, after every question, I will again pause and you can ask me questions if you have any questions. I think someone is sending me a message here. Number 2. Again, by using the same method that I showed you for the previous question, I'm going to answer this question. Various bone and kai or forgive the ear are held. Now in this question, we have a clue again, and that clue is are. Are is used only for the plural subject. So the missing word must be a plural word, right? And if you check here, how many plural words do you see? Concerns, temples, and parties. Concerns, temples, parties. Now, out of all these 3 keywords, these 3 words which are in plural form, which can be held? Temples cannot be held. Concerns cannot be held. It's only the parties that can be held, and it's related to farewell as well. So party is the only word which is related to farewell and held, and it's also in plural form. That's why that's our answer. For this question, if you remember our last class about parallelism, I told you that parallelism says the words on either side of the linking word should be in the same grammatical form. So if this word is problems, the word before and is problem, then problems, then the word after and should also be a plural word. And again, we have only 2 words left which are plural, temples and concerns. So temples would not make any sense, and that's why it has to be concerns of the past year. And now this missing word is a word which is followed by for, which is followed by for. Of all the words given here, only prepare is followed by for and makes sense as well. Prepare for a new beginning. Then comes Buddhist and strike. If you remember my previous discussion, I told you that if there is a sentence without a verb, you can see this is a complete sentence without a verb here. A sentence without a verb with a gap in the middle means verb is missing. A sentence without a verb with a gap in the middle means verb is missing. And sorry. We already have verb here, so verb is not missing. Sorry, that's my bad. So we can see that Buddhists strike their gongs. Verb is already there. Buddhist is an adjective. Now, Buddhist is an adjective. There is a gap after adjective. Now, those of you who have taken the class before perhaps remember that adjectives are followed by noun. So that means the missing word is a noun. It is not just a noun. We also know one more thing about this noun. This is actually a plural noun. And if you're wondering, how did I know this is a plural noun? Let me explain to you. Let me get rid of this. This is plural noun because of strike. Because if it had been singular, then I would have said strikes. Since this is plural, that's why I'm saying strike. So a plural noun is missing. So this is a plural noun which strike gongs. So if you look at the plural nouns here, only one is left, that is temples. Okay, and in temples they have gongs, which is like a bell-like thing. In an effort to something 100 types of human weakness, there is a gap after 2, which means you need a word which should be verb 1. How do I know that? Because after 2 we need verb 1. And if you look carefully, augment is a verb in first form, expel is a verb in first form, and prepare is a verb in first form. Prepare has already been used. So you have expel and augment, and foresee as well. Foresee, augment, and expel. These are the 3 words which are verb 1. Now, expel is a negative word. Augment and foresee are positive word. Okay. So, weakness. Do you want to get the weakness or get rid of weakness? Of course, you want to get rid of weakness. And foresee and augment. Augment means to increase, to improve, to uplift. Would not make sense. Foresee means to see something before it happens. Would not make sense. So only word that is left is expel, which means to get rid of, to push out. So expel 108 types of human weakness. That's how we know this is the answer. Now, The third one, to be called a haute couture house, a business must belong to the syndical chamber of haute couture in Paris, which is by. Now, for this question, again, I have stated this in our tips and tricks page as well. If there is a gap between is and by, you are always looking for verb 3, which means mostly the verb with ed at the end. Verb 3, a verb with ed at the end. Now, if you look at all the words given here, there is only one word with ed at the end, that is regulated. So even if you don't know the meaning, you can still answer this question. So for a person who knows this simple trick, they don't have to spend long time thinking about what could be the answer. Then after that, members must. Must is an auxiliary verb. Auxiliary verbs like may, must, can, could, shall, should, will, would, they are followed by verb 1. They're always followed by verb 1. So far, we have seen that in two cases, we always choose verb 1. That is, if it is a gap after 2, we choose verb 1. If it is a gap after auxiliary verb, then also we choose verb 1. Now, I need to know what are the verb 1s here so that I can make the right choice. Deploy is a verb 1. Endorse is a verb 1. Employ is a verb 1. Deploy, employ, and endorse. Employ means to hire somebody, deploy means to send out a group of people for a purpose, and endorse means to support. Now, support would not make sense here. It's about a business and people, so most likely it's employ or deploy. Now you need to think, are they sending people out or they are hiring people? And they are hiring people to present their collection twice a year, and that's why employ would be the answer here. After that, each must include each presentation because these people were supposed to present. So you can see that in fill in the blanks questions, it's never a random work. You always get clues, different types of clues. And there are so many clues that we have to look at. It takes time to understand all of this and perhaps remember all of this. Otherwise, in the exam, most often what you do will just be a guess, because of which you might end up choosing a wrong answer and you still feel good about it. So after coming out of the exam, you might feel like, yeah, I did quite well because the exam was very easy. And at the end, result can be again disastrous. So I recommend that you be careful about these things. And parts of speech is not a really difficult thing, but requires a little bit time to understand and practice and remember. So spend some time doing that. You have any problem, you can always get to me and ask the question. So these are the only 3 questions we are going to discuss today, because even I'm not familiar with this software right now, and that's why I don't know about many other features we can use. But I just wanted to see whether it would be useful for you or not, and if yes, whether we should continue this in the future or not. Okay, so this is just a test, as I told you earlier. Now is the time for you to give me your feedback about what went right and what went wrong and what we can do, so that I can think about what we can do in the future as well. Okay. Anyone wants to say anything?